Welcome. This is our channel for gear, Gemini Connect.
We are video makers who shoot a lot with GoPro, and it all started with the GoPro Hero 7 Black, but of course we had to get the GoPro Hero 8 Black because we loved our GoPro so much.
That's right, and we gave ourselves several months in which we can use it quite a bit, and we have a lot of that footage out on our other channel, which is more about travel and documentary, Gemini Discover.
This is our official GoPro Hero 8 review, and we have 8 things that we absolutely love about this camera that we're going to talk about right now.
This camera has a lot of strengths, and we broke them down, and the first strength by far, to me at least, and I think you agree, is the image quality you get out of this camera. The main thing about that is that as soon as you put it next to another action cam, you see this shiny new image out of it, and I think most of that comes down to them increasing the bitrate, so now you can finally shoot in 100 megabits per second, which now rivals a lot of even mirrorless and DSLR cameras that do 4K video. And indeed, once you put this on a big screen, you have beautiful 4K out of a tiny action camera.
Point number 2 that we love about the Hero 8 Black is Hypersmooth. So Hypersmooth was first debuting on the GoPro Hero 7 Black, and it was the thing that really sold us on using the GoPro as a vlogging and travel camera. So Hypersmooth 2 debuted on the Hero 8 Black, and it is better than ever. It really is like a gimbal.
It's amazing. I did a lot of shots, in particular in the Louvre when I was in France, and I was able to get those statues or those amazing ornate hallways as if I'm moving a gimbal through them. And I have no other way of saying this any better. It's simply as good as a gimbal. You no longer need a gimbal. The third great quality of this camera is that they've actually enhanced the sound quite a lot. And in fact, when I did most of the work with it, I had forgotten any other microphone. And in very little cases, I actually felt like I was lacking anything. The subway station is actually shuttered because of the strikes. You can't even get in there. And it makes it different because there's more car traffic.
GoPro has been getting even better with their internal microphones, and the Hero 8 Black is one of the best examples of that. And one point is that they finally put in an internal microphone that faces forward. It's right under the lens here, so if you're vlogging, then your audio is like crystal clear. So
when I had this camera with no extra microphone, the only time I ever found myself needing a microphone was when there was wind. So in those cases, you still need to enhance it somehow. But when you're in a room or something without competing noise, this is completely sufficient. I notice the first one that really impresses is the classic Greek era, and then from then on Rome takes over and their stuff is still quite amazing.
And there is actually a wind filter in here, so you can have like a wind reduction mode, but it does make your audio fluctuate a little bit. So I think it's still optimal to try to use an external microphone with this GoPro, but more on that in the next points coming up.
Number 4, this camera is stronger than any previous version or its competitors when it comes to being user-friendly, because they did an overhaul on the menus, and now very easily you can choose presets and shoot with just like 2 taps. You can keep changing all your settings at once. I find that very useful. And also, if you actually don't know the settings and how to configure your camera on your own, there are many presets that they provide to you from the get-go so that you begin shooting in whatever situation you want.
And you can easily adjust those presets. So one thing that we do a lot is, the sharpness. So if you're facing the camera forward, you might want it on like a medium, even high sharpness. But if you're facing it forward, then, or at yourself and you're vlogging with it, then we like to put that sharpness down on low. So that's one of the many settings you can easily configure on this camera.
Strength number 5 is the number 1 all-time GoPro staple. It's a waterproof action camera, and that remains the case. Nowadays, you don't even need a housing for it. You can simply have it and jump right into water. It can get rained on. It doesn't matter.
So in that sense, this is still like the ultimate action camera, but as a result, too, of not needing that case, you're able to do things like enhance the sound. So now it's becoming a really viable vlogging camera and being able to be used outside of action scenarios alone.
Another really big strength is that with this version, GoPro was redesigned and it no longer needs a cage to be mounted, which is a big usability boost.
Right, so previously you had to buy like all this housing and little adapters and things, but now the GoPro has these little feet at the bottom, so they can either go flat like this if you ever want to just mount it on like a wall, or you can have it drop down. And my one little gripe though is that I do wish it was just like a regular 1/4-inch tripod screw instead, because you still need to use these little GoPro mounts, but it is really nice to not have to use the cage.
However, the cost of this redesign is that it no longer fits into any previous cage or accessory that you had for it before, so you pretty much have to start over building out your kit. But
that's only if you're using a cage, and you don't need to use a cage, but again, if you want to add an external microphone or a lume cube or any little things like that, then you might need a cage with it.
The next strength I find in the GoPro is its color profiles. First of all, immediately out of camera, the color profile looks beautiful with the light, and it's really vibrant and everything. If you're not happy with it, it does have flat, which is a way to diminish all that and grade it yourself. But I find that the GoPro color profile is actually really good for both shooting action and scenery and for vlogging, because it doesn't over sharpen, especially if you manually lower the sharpness. It makes your human subject when vlogging look good.
Yeah, so GoPro Color, I think a lot of people have always criticized, GoPro footage as being too much of an action cam look, and that really had to do with colors, but they've really been working on that over the past few years, and yeah, the Hero 8 colors are just excellent all around.
Speaking of going around the GoPro look and no longer being bound to it, is the next strength that this ships with a feature they're now calling digital lenses, which gives you a way to switch your focal length, which you get out of your video. And at this time in particular, they gave us linear 4K, which means you can shoot full 4K without getting the fisheye distortion, which a lot of people have been complaining about, that it just makes you look like a GoPro, right? That is no longer the case. So with linear 4K no longer having the distortion, and with the previous strength of the hypersmooth being extremely good, you now have the chance that you get the gimbal look completely. It floats through space without the things all around you, like the lines, distorting, and you get something which previously you could only get out of a gimbal. Now you can get it out of a little GoPro in your hand.
But there are some scenarios where you might want to shoot wide. So this GoPro actually has a wide and an ultra wide focal length in it, and we actually find that ultra wide is really too wide. Like, there are very few times when you want anything to be that wide, but wide is still really great for vlogging and being in front of the camera, especially with two people. So we do find ourselves still using the original wide lens or focal length that comes in this GoPro, but the nice thing about linear is that you can get your B-roll that looks normal with your lines straight as well.
Yes, in fact, this digital lens feature is the one we toggle the most in our settings and switch between wide when we're shooting ourselves and linear when we're shooting forward. And yes, that lets you get perfect vlogging footage and perfect B-roll in the same time with one small camera.
So those are 8 things that we absolutely love about the GoPro Hero 8. But there are a few things, of course, that we're not sure about or we're just not big fans of with this camera.
Right, and this one falls somewhere right in the middle, and it's rather unknown actually, because it may turn out great, it may turn out a bust. And that is the upcoming media mods, which include something very coveted for a vlog camera, being the flip screen.
And the one thing I think that most people are hesitant about with these media mods is that each of them are costing about $80. So if you get all 3 media mods, that's a lot of extra money that goes onto this cost of the GoPro.
We will get them and try them out and tell you whether they're worth it, but that's a topic of another video. So we're still TBD, to be decided, on the media mods.
But the nice thing too is that you don't need the media mods to use this camera. These are just ways to make this more of a vlogging camera.
And now, for the sake of a fair review, we have to mention some things that are not so great about this camera. To me, the biggest downfall is that they made the lens protector, which is glass, fixed, and you can no longer remove it or replace it by yourself, which means that for an action camera, which is meant to be put in very harsh environments, even if you get a little scratch, crack, or anything, you have to send this camera back for a repair.
Yeah, that's a big downside because, on the previous version, especially the Hero 7, you could twist off that lens cover. It was also really great for putting on filters. But now you have to get all new accessories that go on top of the lens, but more importantly, if you ever damage it, which we did crack our old lens twice. So we did have to go through that whole process, and it's really terrifying to think that we might go through that again with this camera.
Number 2, every GoPro, and this one included, seems to have a lot of bugs, and they freeze a lot, they give you a lot of card errors. Those are the 2 primary ones that I have seen with this one so far.
Yeah, and the thing is, with the Hero 7, we did have some issues. It was mostly just like turning on, turning off, and it would freeze. But with this GoPro, I've had a couple of card errors where it doesn't record my footage properly. So that's a big flaw that I haven't seen on other GoPros that is new on this GoPro.
Yeah, seriously, I do not understand how GoPro simply cannot make a more or less bug-free camera. Let's not aim for 100%, but it can't be always this buggy, honestly.
Or it can't mess up your footage, or just not record your footage. So, the good thing is it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. So even though we still use this camera, we still recommend it. You just have to watch out for that and review your footage after you shoot it.
And the third flaw is that there's the redesign, right? And it's the first of the generation of the redesign. There was a redesign for a good reason of the door and the position of it, and it makes it easier to use. However, when they did that, it appears that they made this door extremely easy to detach, and it simply flies out in the middle of nowhere.
So the old door was located on the bottom, but the issue with that was that, it would interfere with the mount. So you would have to unmount it in order to take the battery out. But now that it's on the side, this door, the old door was actually really hard to take off.
Right.
And this door just, you just like pull it off and
it's
it just
gone.
falls
So
off. Yeah.
I could easily see doing that out in the middle of nowhere, and you lose it forever, and you have to keep buying these. With the previous ones, we also already bought like 3, and I could see how this is now something we lose, and then for a while until you get a new one, your GoPro is no longer waterproof or dustproof and so on. So there's no reason for this door to just completely fly out like that.
But Ulanzi, not that we're sponsored by Ulanzi or anything, but they have a really great door that is more solid and also gives you access to the USB-C port here. So get that door instead because it's better.
All that said, you can see the positives vastly outnumber the negatives. In conclusion, I think this is the very best action camera and vlogging camera in the same time.
This is the very best GoPro I think that they've ever made so far, and yeah, we got it as soon as it came out. We've shot a lot of travel videos with it, so yeah, we can safely say that this is a really great camera and we highly, highly, highly recommend it. So we have a couple of other videos that talk about this GoPro in depth, including an accessory video, so if you're curious about any of the things that we're using to film our videos or vlogs with this camera, please check those videos out, along with lots of sample footage.
As well as upcoming videos like how this Hero 8 compares to the Hero 7, should you upgrade and what conditions you should. And the other video very high on our list is one to review all the media mods which we're anticipating any week now. So stay tuned, subscribe, and we'll give you more GoPro and other camera content soon.